to our podcast, Inspiring Living with me, Mark Candelaria. I'm an architect, blogger, traveler, chef, father, and husband. I'm the founder and now partner of a fabulous 25-person architecture firm specializing in high-end residential architecture, designing amazing homes across the country. We have hosted tours to Italy, Spain, and now Napa over the last 20 years, and in the course of all this, I have met a lot of interesting people who truly inspire me. Our podcast is about all the opportunities that are right there in front of us to inspire living. Yes, we will talk about architecture and design, but every week we will venture into all sorts of topics that will inspire you, teach you, and motivate you to inspire living every day. My guests will include a wide gamut of amazing people, from those in the design industry to clients to real estate professionals, chefs, artists, sports figures, and philanthropists, and people who just flat out get it. Sit back and enjoy, and let's have some fun exploring all the opportunities that are there just waiting for us. Please subscribe and get ready to be inspired every week. Okay, as my dad says, here we go. Because Inspiring Living is all about the people and the organizations that inspire us, we are excited to have Monogram Appliances as one of our sponsors. Anytime we do a new kitchen or a kitchen remodel, Monogram Appliances are what we recommend to our client. Their appliances are the definition of luxury, meticulously detailed using the finest materials and an ownership experience that is second to none. Okay, we are getting so excited about our new demonstration kitchen at our offices, and the details are just starting to come together, and we are going to have this kitchen totally tricked out by Monogram. It's going to be fantastic. We're so excited to cook there. I just had a client come by on Friday and kind of walk them through the new expansion, and took them back there, and they're like, wow, this is going to be so darn cool. So get ready for a lot of cooking over there at Candelaria Design. You know, Monogram is always thinking ahead and inspiring and elevating the kitchen experience. Because at Monogram, they don't just elevate one thing, they elevate everything. Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Here we are already. It's the middle of the month of January. I mean, we are cruising through this month. And so far, it's been fantastic. I'm just so excited by the energy and everything that's happening. And I've got a great guest for you today. I've got the man, Mr. Juan Roque. He's going to be in the house, and you're going to love his interview. He is such an inspiring, energetic dude, and I'm really glad he took the time to do this for us. But first, I want to thank two ladies who just did an outstanding job last night. Letitia Fry, who was on our podcast a few weeks ago, and Jennifer Gage, who is the founder of Gigi's Playhouse. We were at their gala last night at the JDW Marriott up there at Desert Ridge. And, man, I'll tell you, what an evening. What an evening. Very inspiring. Great job. Hosted by Carrie Pena, who also did a fantastic job. And to see what that foundation has done, what that charity has done in the last 7 years, from the initial inspiration from Jennifer Gage to what it has become today, serving over 700 families in the Valley. Amazing. So definitely listen to their podcast and stay tuned. Mr. Juan Roque is ready to roll. All right. I've got a guy here today that I have admired for a long, long time. First of all, I'm an ASU guy. I went to ASU. I never graduated. I'm a dropout, as everybody knows, but we won't go into that story. But I loved watching this guy play. He played one of the most amazing positions, tackle, but this guy could kick ass. So it was fun. It was during the Jake Plummer years, right?
Yes.
92 to 96. Played in the Rose Bowl. Got drafted by the Detroit Lions. All-American. There's all kinds of things. We're going to talk about all of them, though, right? I've got Juan Roque here, the man, the ASU Sun Devil, the dude. Thank you for being here, buddy.
Mark, thank you so much for having me. Can we just end it there after that introduction? I don't even know if I can get better than that in this podcast. So, but thank you so much for your kind words. I remember you as a fan. I mean, I was a huge fan of yours when you were at ASU, and then social media came and all that stuff, and I kind of found you there again and reached out to you a little bit, and you were the nicest dude, man. I mean, you were so nice. Thank you.
And I think I invited you over to. You started following some of my food pictures, I think.
Yes,
and
definitely.
some of my cooking,
those
right?
are very enticing when you post the awesomeness that you cook. And
yeah, so you just came over, and what did I give you?
I don't recall. It was you made something Spanish.
Oh, back then
I believe.
it was like a pork roast. I remember
pork roast. Yes, it was delicious.
Yeah,
but tonight you gave me paella, and I have to admit that's probably the best I've ever had. And I have a very limited palate on Spanish cuisine. Las Vegas, Chicago, places that I've been to.
Yep.
But by far, Mark, yours blew them out of the water.
So you know
pretty good. No, it was fantastic.
You know where to get it now, right?
Yeah, you got a customer. If you ever go to market with those things, I will be the first one to endorse your product.
All right, there we go.
Wholeheartedly.
We may have to talk about that. There we go. So we're going to give you a to-go package to take to your beautiful wife, Jen.
Sounds good. I'm sure she'll really appreciate that.
Yep.
She loves you guys, as you know. So
yeah. So I think we met at my house back in my little condo.
Yes.
Back in what year did you figure it out? Like 2015?
Might have been 2015, but also went to your company's party. I don't remember if it was during December.
It was my 30th anniversary party or something like that. Where I retired.
Time. Yeah, you did retire, but then you unretired. You kind of did a Wolf of Wall Street. If everyone ever saw that movie, where you're going to leave and then you're not going to leave, and then you're like, the heck with it, I'm coming back.
I'm making a slow exit. Let's just put it that way.
But you know what? Hey, when you're passionate about something, Mark, and as you are with Candelaria Design, I mean, it's anyone that's around you and that sees what you're about will say that you have that passion, that same passion that an athlete has. And,
yep,
and that's what it takes to succeed. Is you have to have that passion. You have to have that willingness to do what the other guy doesn't, go the extra mile. Why are you successful? The same reason athletes are successful is because you have to set yourself apart and you have to do it quickly.
Right.
And you have to do it in a way that's going to make you be seen and make you be known. So, it's not a surprise that you're successful. And
well, what's fun talking to you, because I use the sports analogy all the time. I only played high school sports, but I learned so much just in those 4 years of playing high school sports that there's so much in sports that you can apply to business.
Oh, absolutely. And as you have a team, and I see the way you guys go to Europe, you guys are always together. It's the same thing in a locker room. It's no different than in an office setting. What are the differences? Well, yes, you're sweating and you're getting beat up by coaches and you're conditioning to play a football game. But in the corporate world, and I apply this in my job as well, is you have to have that attitude of oneness. Right. We are one.
A team.
We're one mind. We're a team.
Yep.
We're one heart, one body. We're going in one direction. And if you get people to buy into that, amazing things will happen.
Totally.
The most successful businesses are usually built on that premise. You got to be a team. Yep. You got to be one. You got to believe in one another, have each other's backs, and make sure that everything that you do every single day is to better
for that mission,
the whole, above the one.
Yeah, so. Totally. I mean, I think I always kind of look at it like atoms. Like if all of a sudden you have all these atoms collectively moving in the same direction, that energy force is freaking unbelievable.
Oh, of course.
Right?
And it can move mountains. And some of the greatest achievements were not done by one or two single people. It's usually a group of people that were involved, and we're able to get that one person going. And it's a beautiful thing, like you said, when it's the atoms all going in the same direction and causing one heck of an energy field.
Totally.
And when those things do come together, like for us in 1996, it can culminate into something special.
That was an exciting. I mean, that Nebraska game still is like one of the best freaking games I ever watched. I mean, it's like I loved watching that game.
To be here now 24 years.
Isn't that crazy?
This September from that game, and the way people still talk about it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
To me, being 45 years old now and, being 23 years, almost 24 years away from that game, and the way that people just talk about it with such nostalgia, such passion, like it just happened yesterday.
Yeah.
It just shows how in that moment in time, that team brought this community here in Phoenix together and the whole Valley of the Sun, actually, not just Phoenix, but the whole valley, that even now we're almost a quarter century since it happened, and they speak about it with the same enthusiasm and passion as if it was just the previous Saturday. It's a beautiful thing. I love it.
It feels like it was just the previous Saturday.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, God, yeah.
It's only been almost 24 years.
Yeah,
almost a quarter century, but hey,
yeah.
What the heck?
So we're going to talk about the current ASU helm, and I kind of like what I'm starting to see there. We'll talk about it some more, but
sure, I am 100% on the Herm train. I think
too.
that we finally got somebody in there who understands what it's going to take in today's environment, in today's athlete world, to get us to that next level. Because it is a tricky river to navigate sometimes. Talk about building brands and things. I mean, it's just a whole different dynamic.
It's a lot
than
more
when I was 18 years old.
Football.
I just wanted to go to college and get it paid for, because I didn't want my parents to pay for it because they couldn't afford it. So,
So let's go back there. Let's go back there. Let's go back to the beginning. Okay.
Oh man, I came to ASU in 1992.
Okay, let's go way back.
Oh, way back.
Where were you born?
I was born in San Diego, California.
My
mother was already a resident of the U.S. My grandfather was recruited to work at, I believe, Greyhound or one of those big companies here back in those trailways. There was Greyhound. He worked in Mexico as a, in Mexico back in the old days, they couldn't drive around with a mechanic on the bus.
Yeah.
It wasn't set up that way. So everyone that drove buses, because I was in motor transportation in Mexico up until very recently, everyone traveled by bus.
Yeah.
And there were luxury buses, there were second-class buses, but the drivers had to understand the mechanics of the bus itself in case it broke down. Because, Mexico's very vast.
Yeah.
And it's not like the U.S. where you may have, 60, 50 miles of nothingness, and then all of a sudden there's a town.
Right.
Mexico, you go a couple hundred miles before you even see electricity.
So you're a multitasker bus driver.
And especially this was in the 50s, 40s. So the drivers had to be mechanics. Right. They had to be able to fix their buses. They had to be able to get that, going. So my grandfather, who was educated, he had a degree, and he drove buses, but he was a mechanic. He was recruited to come to Los Angeles back then. And they emigrated him, and he was the head mechanic, I believe, at Greyhound. It was one of those, might have been RTD, I don't remember. He was the head mechanic at one of those for many, many, many years. He lived in Norwalk, right there off of Alondra, right near the I believe the 605 freeway.
Interesting. And my dad was a mechanic.
Really?
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seemed like that was the big trade back then. And mechanics
Great
have beautiful minds. If you think they really are able to see things that we just don't. They're almost on a savant level when it comes to breaking an engine apart and telling you exactly what's going on. I couldn't do that. My brain doesn't work that way. My dad tried to teach me mechanics as a kid.
Screw anything together.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I can write and I can talk your ear off and things like that.
So you lived in Mexico for a little while.
We did. So I was born in San Diego. My mother was already a resident. That's why I was born here. My dad was from Mexico. He lived in Aguascalientes, which both my parents are from there. But then my father didn't really want to come to the States, so we lived in Veracruz for a couple of years. Okay. My mother did not want to live in Mexico. Yeah. She had already gotten a taste of life in L.A. Yep. She was not trying to stay there. So she eventually convinced my father to come to the U.S. And my father, unfortunately, wasn't illegal for many years. Finally, under Smith-Mazzoli, he was able to legalize himself in 1986, which is called amnesty under Reagan. So my dad was a diehard Republican until the day he died because of that. He was a Republican. Ronald Reagan was a hero in our house because he was able to legitimize himself through that. And then, of course, in 2000, he became a citizen of the country. Awesome. So I grew up in Ontario, California. After we lived in Mexico, my parents moved to L.A. again, and then we moved to Baldwin Park just for just months at a time. Mm-hmm. And then my parents bought their first house, and it's the house they own. My mother owns now to this day in Ontario.
That's awesome.
Since the first grade on to graduating high school, and grew up in a rough part of Ontario. It was in those days. Now it's really quiet. A lot of the property's been taken over by young families, and it's not like it was when I was growing up. There was a rough and tumble. The head of the Mexican mafia is from Ontario. It's from that neighborhood where I grew up. So if that tells you anything, there's a lot of street gangs, a lot of violence. I mean, I knew what a PCP, a Shermhead was, because we'd see these guys, just whacked out on the street. The cops would pick them up. They'd fight the cops. I mean, we saw stuff like that growing up. I mean, I lost my best friend at 16. He was shot, 6 houses from where I grew up. So it was a rough area. Yeah. And it was almost like you had to live two lives. You had to live your life at home, and then you had to live your life at school. And I kind of had to walk that line because I didn't want to be involved in the gangs, especially after my friend Frankie died. And I just figured I don't want that. I don't want to do that to my parents. But I was good at sports. I was good at school. Yep. And you had to navigate that water. It was tricky because, of course, they try to recruit you into the gang. And I still have friends to this day who went down that path. And sadly, their life is full of regret now. Yeah. Some that have done some serious time. And they even say now, geez, we thought you were the weird one. We should have followed your path. A couple of them that were really good athletes that maybe would have had a chance to go on, but they chose that lifestyle. And
so somehow you knew.
I just knew I knew I wanted to be more
than where that was going.
And I wanted to achieve more than just being another kid from the hood.
Yeah.
And
so somehow you saw enough down that other path that you said, I don't want to go that way.
No, I figured either military or sports, but one way or the other, I was going to get the hell out of Ontario. Yeah. And I was going to go live a life and go to college. And, probably since the 6th grade, my 6th grade teacher, God bless her, Mrs. Swanson, who believed in me, the first teacher that believed in me. I was kind of a problem child, Mark. I was in counseling. I was a fat kid. I was a little awkward, and I got picked on a lot. And until I realized that I was bigger than my tormentors. So then I started fighting back. Well, as you know, even in football, this is true, is the one who's antagonizing is never the one that gets caught. It's the one who's reacting. And you get a 15-yard personal foul. Why? Because someone says something stupid to you, you turn around, you hit them, or you shove them.
You get caught.
Or someone chips at you or pushes you and you push them back. You're the one who gets caught. Well, that was the story of my life as in elementary school, is I'd get suspended because someone would say something stupid to me or they do something, and then I would react. And, of course, I'm twice their size, and everyone only saw me react. And
You're the bully.
Yeah, my 6th grade teacher is the one who actually believed in me and started giving me these books. She started giving me, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Up until that point, I was a problem child. I was getting in trouble. I didn't want to be in class. What was happening was I was finishing my work and then I just goof off.
Yeah.
So she started figuring that out and gave me, I remember in 6th grade, I could tell you the books I read. It was Tom Sawyer, it was Huckleberry Finn, I read The Prince and the Pauper, I read Great Expectations, I read To Kill a Mockingbird, which is still one of my all-time favorite books to this day. Not realizing until the end of the year that these were books that are given to college kids or high school kids.
Right.
And I didn't know this. And she says, you have the potential to go to college, and I expect that from you. She goes, you're a lot smarter than you give yourself credit for. I expect from this moment on, you're going to be a good student. You're going to stop goofing off. And she goes, you have potential. Yep. She's the first one that told me that.
Yeah.
And
so just hearing that made a difference.
It was different.
Yeah.
Because up until that point, I thought there was something, quote unquote, wrong with me. That I was in trouble and getting picked on. Well, junior high happened. I was a so-so student in junior high, but it's in high school where I finally pulled it all together. Especially when the reality of playing college football became evident after my sophomore year.
So in high school,
you had to batten down the hatches. And
high school, you got into football, though.
Yes, I didn't play organized football. Again, too big, too fat, too chunky. I played baseball, and I hated it. I couldn't do much of anything except swing the bat.
Yeah, what position did you play in baseball?
I played outfield. Are you kidding me? I was one of the kids that only played 3 innings.
Right field
I was one of the kids that played 3 innings, and just to make sure I got my time in the game. Over there in left field somewhere. I could swing the bat though, and when I connected with the ball, it went pretty far. But that it was not my sport. So
football found you though.
Football found me, and I always loved football. I always wanted to play football since I was in elementary school. My favorite team was the Raiders. I also looked at the Bears, the 85 Bears. Who couldn't forget that team? I still remember that Super Bowl.
Yep, I do too.
And I wanted to play defense.
Man.
Yeah, the fridge. See, I wanted to play defense like, Michael or McMichael and, Ron Rivera and those guys that played on that team.
That was a good team.
Defense was where I wanted to be. And, of course, Howie Long was one of my idols, Lyle Alzado.
Yep.
And, of course, in high school, what did I play? Defensive tackle. And that's what I made a name for myself in crushing opposing quarterbacks and running backs. And I played with a fury. I mean, I was all that anger and all the stuff I went through as a kid, I used to just take it out on whoever was in front of me. You're like the water boy. It was kind of like that, only with Spanish accents.
That's good.
So that led to me, of course, being recruited. I got recruited by a lot of the Pac-10 at that time.
So were you being recruited as a defensive player?
Well, I was wanting defense.
Yeah.
They were telling me defense. I don't think there was any way in hell I was going to play defense in college. They were grooming me to be an offensive lineman because I got moved to offense my senior year, and of course I hated offense
in high school.
But I was all Valley, all league in offense, and defense too. But on offense, which was a shock to me, I'm like, I didn't think I was that good. And then college coaches started saying, "Hey, you're pretty good on offense." Like, oh my gosh, and I'm like, then now looking at it, several years later, my high school coach knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
He put me on offense for a reason.
Yep.
And I lasted at ASU maybe 3 weeks on defense. And they said, go see Coach Cazzetto. You're moving to offense, and the rest is history there. So I came here in August of 92.
You were looking at USC.
UCLA, I told no. See, I grew up a USC fan. It's hard for me to hate the Trojans, Mark. As much as I hate them when we play them, it's hard for me to hate them the other 364 days of the year because I grew up cheering for the Trojans. Rodney Pete, all those guys. Mark Carrier. I mean, I go on and on.
How did you go to ASU? How did you choose that?
So I was being recruited by Cal, Washington State, not ASU yet, but USC were the big. Oregon, I told no. Oregon State, of course, they're losing. You're not going to go to there.
Yeah.
So UW, Wazoo, Cal, and USC were the ones pushing the hardest, and of course Nebraska from the Big 8 was big time recruiting me. Tom Osborne offered me a scholarship right away. He was in our living room. My mom still laughs about that. She made him quesadillas. She made Tom Osborne quesadillas.
That's funny.
So that's one of her big stories. Because he won all those national titles when I was in college, and she used to rib me for that real quick getting out point. But she used to go, "You could have went there and won a lot of national titles." I'm like, "Yeah, but I wouldn't have been happy, Mom."
So it was really good beating him that day.
Oh, it was sweet. Yeah. So back to the recruiting portion of it is I really liked Cal. USC, of course, was where my heart was. I wanted to be a Trojan. That's kind of where I grew up. Either UCLA or USC. Some kids were Sooners fans. We also cheered for Florida State, which was so awesome, beating them in the bowl game recently.
That was fun
because we did watch them as kids. Ampley and those guys. But I loved USC, of course. Wanted to be a Trojan, all that stuff. But I really, really was just enamored with Bruce Snyder.
Yeah.
There was something about Coach Snyder when I finally met him in person. I'd only talked to him on the phone up to this point. I'd never actually met him. I only met Rod Marinelli up to that point. And Rod Marinelli, let me tell you something about this guy. I know they're having their rough times over there. Dallas, one of the best coaches to ever coach. He's from Southern California. He's a kid who grew up just like I did. He's a grown man, excuse me. But we had a lot of similar backgrounds. So in talking to Coach Marinelli, I developed that bond with him. Because of that common thread. He's from Rosemead. I'm from Ontario. He went to Cal Lutheran, went to Vietnam. Was a guy who just, made himself and then developed into one hell of a college coach at the time. But I loved his intensity. I loved his passion. And then that weekend when I went to my Cal trip. Now, funny thing is I got sick, so I didn't really enjoy my trip. But there's one thing that stood out is I watched him practice for the bowl game. It's the only team to that point that I'd ever seen practice. I had never seen a college team practice before. That had an effect on me, Mark.
Interesting.
Seeing Bruce Snyder, seeing Dan Cazzetto, seeing Rod Marinelli coach their guys, and the way their guys responded to them. You're like, I want to get in on that. I want to be part of this.
You felt that energy.
But sadly, it was in Berkeley. And if you've ever been to Berkeley, I'm sure you have. It's not necessarily the most eye-appealing place in the country. It's kind of dumpy. It's a little ugly. Campus is beautiful.
Not my favorite place.
Yeah, and they took us around town, and I'm kind of like, okay. Now, mind you, I'd already been on a trip to Washington State, and that's way up in the middle of nowhere. Up in the Palouse. But I had a great time on my trip because everybody lives there. So it's college kids everywhere. We were walking through these hallways, and it was just an amazing time.
Interesting.
But deep down, I knew I wasn't going to go there. It's too darn far. I wanted to go somewhere where I can be close enough, but far enough away.
ASU's perfect.
Exactly. It came together perfectly. So to make the long story short, I really loved Bruce Snyder. I loved the way that they coached. Of course, they won that Citrus Bowl that year. They almost beat Washington that year to go to the Rose Bowl. But it was in Berkeley, and again, my heart was with the Trojans. After my trip to Nebraska, I pretty much said, I'm not going to take my trip to UW. I canceled that trip, even though they'd won the national title. I wasn't feeling it with Seattle. I wasn't feeling it with UW. So I committed to USC. Well, Rod Marinelli knew I had this bond with him. I really liked Coach Snyder. Coach Snyder gets hired at ASU. And about a week after I announced my commitment, and back then we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Facebook. You announced it to the newspaper. So I announced it to the Inland Valley Daily Bulletin, where I grew up by Alan Wallace over at Super Prep. I notified him that, hey, I'm committing to USC, and it's pretty much it. That's it. I took my trip to USC, and I was pretty much done. I figured this is where my life is going. Well, one day, Bruce Snyder shows up at my high school with Rod Marinelli, Coach Marinelli, and with Dr. Ron Cox. Anybody who's been affiliated with ASU football knows the name Dr. Ron Cox. He is a man's man. He served in the Army. He's an officer in the Army. He just has a commanding presence, Mark, and he had an effect on me that I would say was profound for being 17 years old. He was in my living room. Now, granted, now I see the sales pitch because Coach Snyder and Coach Marinelli didn't know squat about ASU. They'd just gotten hired. So they just moved to Tempe. They're probably still living out of their suitcases, right? So they brought in their closer. They brought in Dr. Ron Cox.
They knew what they were doing.
And he sat in my living room and told me about Arizona State and about what they had to offer and about the things that he'd seen and the development.
And where it was going to go.
And Tempe, exactly, and where they wanted to go with Coach Snyder, why they hired Coach Snyder, and just the potential that was there. It intrigued me. And again, I had an instant, I was drawn to Coach Cox, Dr. Cox, and I said, I'll take my last trip. What the heck? My high school coach, I realized later on, was pulling the strings behind my back, telling them, get him over there. I don't want him. He didn't want me to go to USC. He figured if I was going to go to SC, it was too close to home, too close to the homies, as they say, too close to the neighborhood, and maybe that wasn't the best for me.
Totally see it now.
To flourish. So he didn't want me to go there. He never told me that because I was dead set on it.
Right.
So I took the trip to ASU, and this was during January of 1992, and I fell in love. You can't not fall in love with the Valley, Mark. This is a wonderful place to live. It's beautiful. The people here are fantastic.
Same thing with me.
I was just love at first sight, man.
I was going to school in Boulder, and I came down. Another Berkeley. Okay. So I came down here spring break. Walked down Palm. What's it called?
Palm Lane.
Palm Lane.
Yeah,
or Palm Court. Whatever.
Or Palm Walk, I believe.
Palm Walk. Yeah. Anyway, I'm walking down this thing. I'm smelling the orange blossoms. I'm seeing the most beautiful women I think I've ever seen in my life. And I go back to Boulder, and it's Birkenstock City with hairy women, and I'm like,
and snow and
so I fell in love with ASU too.
Absolutely, yeah. It's not hard to do.
Not hard to do.
And I mean, what they have now is fantastic and fabulous, spectacular. Oh my gosh!
I haven't walked down the.
I go on campus a lot, and it's ridiculous what they have now.
I drove down there a couple about maybe 12 months ago, whatever. I could not believe how different Tempe is.
It's way different. And it was badass back then. Now it's just spectacular.
It's amazing.
And again, and anyone who lives here will tell you. I mean, you fall in love with this place. It gets inside you. I came to the trip. I saw the way that players interacted with each other, and that was big for me. Is to watch the way that the team. Like a guy like Shante Carver and Brian Hooks, and these guys were brothers.
I forgot about all those names, so it's great when you say
Manny Carvajal. I could go. Mike Ballion was my host at the time, and I took a recruiting trip with Sam Santana out of Southern California, who was from Paramount High School, and again, we didn't have Twitter, Facebook, social media. You knew about each other through this magazine called Cal High Sports. That's how I knew who Sam was. No, nothing like that.
There was nothing.
So we knew about each other, a lot of us, because we read Cal High Sports.
Right.
But we didn't know about the Arizona kids. We didn't know who they were, unless you read Super Prep, which you kind of got some of those names of who was who. And some of us made a pact. Marcus Soward, Sam Santana, and we made a pact that we were going to come here. By Saturday night, I was pretty much convinced this is where I wanted to be. Only time in my life that I actually went back on my word, and when I gave a commitment and said no, and then said no.
It's a good choice.
It was, I believe so. And I came here in August of '92, and it's been one hell of a ride.
Yeah. So tell us about that. I mean, when you came to Tempe and you were in the first Camp Tonazona, wasn't it?
Camp Tonazona, yes.
Yeah. So you guys go up there. What were you thinking being up in Payson and from a kid from Ontario?
It was a great experience up until you started practicing. So, you get up there, it's in the mountains, and anyone who's been to Tonazona, I mean, it's just one of the most beautiful settings you can ask for. The mountains are, at that time of the year, it's all green.
Yeah.
It's lush. It's a little warm, but it's not as bad as the valley.
Right.
Breeze is blowing, and you're just mesmerized with it.
So you're in Bruce Snyder's
first
Tonazona.
The first Tonazona ever.
Wow.
And of course, you realize real quick
There's
that
a different world.
It's a pretty place, but it's not a pretty place to be. If that makes any sense, because it was physical. They only go up for 5 days. We went up for 10.
Right.
They go 5 days now. That's it. That's wimpy.
Yeah,
we went 10 days.
Yeah, 10 days.
10 days, and 8 of the 10 days were 2-a-days.
Yeah.
So
your asses off.
we were working our asses off, and the first 3 days it was 2-a-day, 2-a-day, 2-a-day. We had one practice on the first Sunday, which was in full pads, and then we were 2-a-day, 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 all the way till Saturday. So it was a grind, and it was tough. But I see the genius of it because it forged us together as brothers. Because, again, there was no Facebook. There was nothing. We just had each other.
Yeah.
And you do feel isolated from the rest of the world for those 10 days. And it gets chippy. Everyone gets on each other's nerves, and fights break out in practice. But when we're not on the field in uniform, we're having late night conversations. People think Facebook debates get heated, with politics or religion. You've never been in a Tonazona dorm room with a bunch of tired athletes at 10 p.m. When you're supposed to be in bed, and everyone's talking about, well, if there was a God of this, and if there was people, you're out of your mind, you're stupid. I mean, it was great though. But that's how we got to know one another. And we were all different. A lot of us had different opinions, different ways of seeing things, but we were a team,
right? And
we were all Sun Devils, and that was a beautiful thing. Different races, different places in the country, different economic backgrounds.
That's the other thing I love about sports like that too is what you just said. I mean, it's just like you form a team. It's like I don't care if you're black or a Mexican or
don't
whatever.
matter.
It doesn't matter.
Don't matter if you're Muslim, Jewish, Christian, atheist. When we're in that huddle, we're Sun Devils,
we're Sun Devils.
And we're a team. And our leader was Jake Plummer, and when we're looking in Jake's eyes, that's all that matters at that point. Is that we're all one.
That guy
and we're united, and we're there to kick some ass. And
well, see, I'm a big Denver Bronco fan, so I was excited when he played for the Broncos.
He did good with the Broncos, didn't he? I was so proud of him. He really resurrected his career there.
He did great all the way through. I mean,
and typical Jake fashion, he never takes credit for nothing. He says it's Gary Kubiak that made him a great quarterback there. He's like, it was Kub, man. He's like, he put me in great positions. He formulated the game plans, to what I was comfortable with. I'm like, well, Jake, you had something to do with that too. Yeah. I mean, you were pretty damn talented. I was all right.
It's a combination of all the things.
Yeah, he was just inducted in the College Football Hall of Fame, which was very well deserved because he was a special player. He's a special man.
So you worked up from that freshman year to senior year to the Rose Bowl game. And that Rose Bowl game was something else. I mean, I thought you guys had that damn thing in the frickin'
I still haven't watched that game. It's hard for me to watch it. I watched snippets of it, but it's just hard because even now.
I mean, the way Plummer bottomed down there, I was like, we got it. It's done. And then
Yeah, you looked at the clock and 1:34, and then the squib kick, and they got the ball on the 40. I mean, it was just like, oh no, and we had them third down, I believe, 3 times, and then pass interference, another pass interference.
You remember it better than me, but now you're bringing it all back.
Oh yeah, see, that's why I can't watch the game because it just breaks my heart. And we actually had a chance to come back and win it, if you remember.
Yeah.
We ran out of time.
Yeah.
We didn't have enough time. We had about 40 seconds left.
I went to the Rose Bowl with Van Raphorst. I went to that game in
Pasadena.
That was a fun game. That was a fun game to watch. They beat, I think it was Michigan or Michigan.
Yeah, they beat Michigan, and they weren't supposed to beat Michigan. ASU surprised everybody that year. And they were a surprise team, right? They weren't very well regarded at the beginning of the year. They came back and
that was a great game.
They went and won the Rose Bowl, man. That was against a good Michigan team, against the Bo Schembechler Michigan team.
That was a good game.
Those guys were hard to beat back then.
Yep. So you get through the Rose Bowl, and what's that transition like? I've always wondered, like a college player, like someone like you, an All-American, just playing the Rose Bowl, and now you got to do the NFL trick. What's that like? You were a second-round draft pick, right?
Second round. It was a transition just from the Rose Bowl now going to the East West Shrine game.
Yeah,
where now you're in an all-star game setting where now you know that everything you're doing could potentially cost you money, including how you're practicing. Huh. We had Ron McBride. Coach McBride was coaching us on the O-line, the former Utah coach.
Okay,
was a stud coach. Barry Alvarez was also coaching the East team. But really just a whole different mindset now because you are now basically interviewing for a job. You have, and then of course I did the Senior Bowl, and we were being coached by the Kansas City Chiefs staff, who was Marty Schottenheimer's staff, and of course Art Shell, who
there you go.
I was a fan of as a kid. I got to be coached by him, which was a huge honor.
That's pretty cool. And he was a tackle, wasn't he?
He was a tackle.
Yeah, so there
pretty
you go.
Damn good one.
Yeah, really good Hall of Famer.
And a pretty darn good football coach too. So you're transitioning now from the amateur to the professional. It's daunting. It's daunting. It's very intimidating. It can really tax you and really just wear you down mentally, because now it's everything really, you're doing is potentially money.
Right, and it's just you. You don't have the team behind you, in essence.
No, it's way different. It's you and a strength coach and the gym, and now you're in the combine, and everybody's out for themselves. And Lee Steinberg.
Okay.
And David Dunn, but Lee for the most part.
Yep.
And it just wasn't the same as the excitement of being recruited or making that decision, because you make that decision, you're going to to that place. It's where you're choosing to go.
Yep.
Now you're just wanting to be picked.
Yeah.
Think of when you're a little kid being picked in kickball, and you're just anxiously waiting. You're holding the ball, and they're picking, and you're waiting to get picked. I mean, that's really what it's like.
Yeah.
And whether you're the first pick or the last pick, it's not a fun experience. And it's stressful. It can be very intimidating. You don't quite know what to say sometimes. It could be frustrating as well as angering.
Right.
You see, lineman after lineman being selected. Orlando Pace went first that draft.
Yep.
Walter Jones went, I believe, 7th. And they're both Hall of Famers.
Right.
So I have no quarrel with that.
I get you there.
Tariq Glenn went 18th. He's a potential Hall of Famer. So I don't have a lot of a beef with that. I was a 6th lineman taken, so it's not a bad spot to be in. I went after Ross Verba. He went to the Packers as a 30th pick. I thought I was going to go to the Packers 30th. They ended up taking him because they wanted versatility. They only had me as a tackle. They had him as a guard tackle. Then I went 35th to Detroit.
Yeah.
So
when you got
it was relief.
Detroit, what did you think about Detroit?
At first, I didn't think much of it because I knew Barry Sanders played in Detroit.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I knew. And Herman Moore, I believe, were the only really 2 names that I knew from the Lions. And that's because I watched the Pro Bowl.
Who was the quarterback then?
Scott Mitchell.
Oh, yeah, that's
from
right.
University of Utah. And then played for the Miami Dolphins. And Scott was a good dude, man.
Yeah.
And I know he kind of got a raw deal in Detroit, and he got yanked in '98, and they put in Charlie Batch, if that tells you anything. Bobby Ross may regret that decision because I believe that decision forced Barry Sanders to retire. Because when you look at '97, he had the breakout year, 2,053 yards. He broke a record. Mark, it was such an honor to block for him, just to know that I had a hand in about 200 of those yards.
Yeah, that cool?
Really cool. Because Barry is just such a great guy. He's just an amazing human being.
No one can ever take that away from you. That is something that...
And I got injured in that game that he ran for like 225 yards, and had just... If it's on YouTube, you can find a 1997 Thanksgiving Day game, Detroit Lions, and you could see that we just... It was a slow start, but then in the middle of the second quarter, we just started dominating the Bears, and Barry was just running up and down on them over the right side for the most part. That was such an exciting thing, and I got hurt in that game in the start of the fourth quarter. That's just life. It wasn't meant for me to be a long tenured professional athlete. I was bitter for it. I went through some problems with that mentally because you feel like a failure.
Whole life?
Yeah, it's all I knew. It's all I wanted to do, and then all of a sudden you find yourself out of football, and it's like, oh shoot, now what? And of course, I had a pregnant wife at the time. We had just gotten married. She's pregnant. I'm unemployed. You know, it's
a harsh
another
reality
transition.
all of a sudden.
I tried Canadian football. Yeah, really harsh reality.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for my wife's family, I mean, I don't know what we would have done at that time. But we made it through and played in Canada for a year, then tried it for a second year, and it just didn't work out. Finally, I just had enough of football. Then it came the transition to real life, which was very difficult. Had some substance abuse issues. Got my ass thrown in jail even.
Wow.
Just dealing with that transition from I'm no longer an athlete. I'm no longer in my own mind. It's all in my own head, mind you.
It's all in your head, but it's your identity. It's your identity.
Yeah, and it was all in my head, Mark. I'm who I am no matter what.
Right. But for an athlete, I think that is such a hard thing.
I think it's a lashing out of a childish man who was desperately trying to hold on to being a kid.
Yeah.
And the harsh reality of having to man the hell up was looking me in the eye, and I wasn't up to the task at that point.
Well, and I think part of it is the age that you're at that point. I mean, I look at my life. I obviously didn't do sports. I went through this whole thing, but your 20s are you don't know who in the hell you are, no matter what you're doing. I don't care if you're a pro football player, an architect. You're trying to figure out.
Look at Josh Gordon, man. He's in his 20s. He can't figure it out. This kid just keeps getting busted from the NFL for some reason. People think, well, why can't he just stop smoking weed? Well, obviously he has a problem.
He has a problem.
And like you said, you're in your 20s, and I believe you're still a teenager in a lot of senses.
Oh, totally.
But your age says differently. You're no longer a teen because you're not a teen number. But I believe it's really in your mid-30s when you start to figure things out.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I don't think you know anything about yourself really until you're about 35.
That's about when my transition started to, be a little bit more chill.
Who I really was way deep down.
Deep down, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And a lot of my transformation to that really was when I sobered up, when I finally got rid of the alcohol and just lived my life, with a clear head.
Yep.
I've become a lot more comfortable in my own skin. I look back now on my life, and I've had some great moments, and I have a lot of moments of appreciation. I've met some great people like yourself and my teammates and my employer, Jeffrey Phillips. I've met some very incredible people that I'm very blessed to have in my life. And I think you have to get to the point where you're 45 and you're looking back going, you're looking ahead too. You're not going anywhere yet. But we're at that age where, we can look back far enough to go, wow, that's some pretty cool stuff. And I've been part of some pretty cool things. And then you look forward going, and I ain't done yet.
No,
we got a little ways to go here. But
I think you have a lot of stuff coming your way, to be honest with you, Mark, from what I've heard and what I've seen. And I just like your energy, first of all. And that's the thing I always find with people that I've watched, that a lot of my clients that are super successful, they have this energy and this passion that I think just carries them. Like, it's just like football, You got that passion, you can pretty much do anything.
Thank you, Mark. I do believe that. And I believe that, we have to sometimes go through. I put a Facebook post on this a while back. I don't know if you read it, where I said, everyone's going to go through the fire.
Yeah.
We're all going to go through it. It's just life. Unfortunately, we're going to go through the flames. But then one of two things is going to happen. You're either going to turn into ash or you're going to forge into steel.
Right. I love it.
And I believe my flames have forged me into steel. And, there's nothing that I can't face now that's going to beat me.
Right.
I've already been beat a few times. So I know what it feels like.
Yeah.
And it's just, like you said, just got to keep the passion, the energy. You got to keep the motivation. Every day you got to wake up and you got to have a purpose. You got to have a goal for the day. What is it that I'm trying to accomplish today?
Right.
And I believe if we live life like that, and this goes back to one at a time. This is what we were taught at ASU. Why were we successful, people ask? Why did we go 11-0? How did we beat Nebraska? How did we do all these amazing things?
Game.
We took it one at a time.
You focused on that play.
Exactly. And that's what Coach used to say, play the play.
Play the play.
He used to say, one of his biggest things that he would tell us in the locker room, and I'm going to take people inside the locker room right now, is he'd say, don't worry about the damn scoreboard.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. That's my job. You let me worry about the scoreboard. You just play. Right. You go play.
Focus
play
on
the
what
play
you have
that's
to do
called.
Next play.
Yeah. Don't worry about the play that happened before. Don't worry about what's coming up. Worry about what's called. And that's tied life. Into that exactly. And that tied into conditioning.
Yep.
Run the sprint. Do that mat drill. Mat drills were these torture sessions we'd have where they'd beat us up for 20 minutes to see who was tough enough to continue to into spring football.
Right.
But it was all based on one at a time. And I live my life that way because you do have to, I'm sure you with Candelaria Design.
I've learned
it's one at a time, man. You can't do more than what you have at hand. Nope. And I believe that people sometimes fall on their faces because they get overwhelmed and they see too much, and they're
worrying about too many things that
your mind's all over the place.
90% of it's never going to even happen.
And you're not focused on any one thing. You're focused on everything, but then you can't do anything because you're focused on everything, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, no, totally.
So I believe that, having that purpose, that drive, one at a time, just day by day, just it's what helped us be successful as athletes. It's what's helping me be successful as a human being. And it's life's a blessing, man. That's the way I look at it.
Awesome, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, I love every day. To me is just so. What I've learned is just make it cool. Take the day and go. how am I going to make this a cool day? Well, I've got Juan Roque coming over. I'm going to make him paella. Because you know what?
That was really cool.
Yeah, and you're going to remember that, right?
Exactly.
And you're going to take some back to your wife, Jen.
And I look forward to this today too, because it's just when you have a good relationship and a good rapport with somebody, and as we have, and you invited me on your podcast, I knew we were going to have a great time. And when you kind of gave me the themes of what we wanted to talk about, I mean, there's just so much we can get into. We could go probably for 3 hours.
We're going to be doing this some more, I hope.
Oh, absolutely.
And you got to talk about your podcast. You've got a podcast going.
Yes, I do. Sun Devils Worldwide. You can find it on my Facebook page. It's one of those funny things. What Facebook puts you through just to change the name. It used to be called On the Line, but now we changed it to Sun Devils Worldwide. It's out of the Dave Pratt Star Studios in the same building that you're in.
Candelaria Design is 2 floors above me.
2 floors above. I'm going to come say hi to you, but. We're in a test run phase right now. It's nothing concrete. It's just something we're trying. It's a Sun Devils based show. I'm really going to focus just on football season for the most part. We've done 21 episodes, and I just recently brought on a co-host, Brittany Boyer, who's kind of a freelance journalist here in the Valley. She does, her Lit with Brit on Facebook. She also does some TV appearances. She just has a really good energy, just kind of like we have a good energy. We have good energy with her. And again, we're 21 shows in. We just did our bowl game show last week, and now of course we're going to do a recruiting show. As you know, there's a lot of great things happening with ASU. So I wanted to do a show that really just focuses on Sun Devil football, but not the wannabe ESPN stats and facts and who's up for the Heisman. And I really want to get into themes that a lot of people will maybe even get into. Fans that are talking smack about the program, for instance. I could go on a 45-minute rant just on that alone, and I've done it. I learned a lot about myself doing this podcast, Mark. I learned that I can actually do a show by myself. I don't need to have a co-host or I've done solo acts.
You got to go.
It goes fast, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Especially when you're rambling. But you see, I ramble. So it's something we're trying out. We'll see where it goes. Hopefully it has a future. I know that podcasting is becoming a lot more popular. A lot of the big name, even media stars are doing podcasts, because I just think it gives a different element where we can just have a conversation. We're in your living room in your beautiful home here in Phoenix. We're just hanging out. I had paella. We don't have cameras and directors and time constraints.
But who else would ever be part of this
conversation? A producer barking into your headpiece like, hurry up. We're on a time constraint. We don't have any of that.
Don't worry about that.
And I almost think that podcasting, it becomes more real.
Yeah.
You bring a more real human approach. You're just being yourself. Yeah. You're not acting. You're not trying to put on a show. It's a show, but I don't know if that makes sense. It's a show, but you're not putting on a show.
Right. What I like about it,
you're trying to get something across.
Like if we were at a restaurant or place like that talking, we wouldn't have this conversation. We would talk about how's your wife? What's this?
What's going on? When are you going to Italy next?
Yeah. But to do this, it's great because we get into depth, but everyone can hear it and everyone can be a part of it.
Right. So it's like I'm talking to you, but everyone else is kind of eavesdropping.
Everyone else is.
There's a lot of flies on the wall, right?
So I wanted to talk about your lovely wife, Jen. And your son Christian.
Yes,
I love
Very
following what
them.
you guys do on social media. I know she got her nursing degree. And
and
I mean, it's been fun watching your family progress.
Thank you. My wife she's a badass girl, man.
We both have badass girls, dude.
We do. Yeah, you have a warrior queen. Absolutely. You have. I'm sure she keeps you going.
Oh
and,
for sure.
Just so super proud of her accomplishment and being able to overcome her adversity. That again, just one at a time. It just shows you that mentality of a warrior.
That's what we said every day. It's just we're living today.
And my wife also, going through nursing school and watching her transformation from student to professional, and now to being in a leadership position. In 3 short years out of nursing school, she's already a senior clinical manager.
Yeah.
It's kind of unheard of. Usually you have to get a little bit more chops, get a little bit more in charge, but she's dove in and she developed a reputation over at Banner Estrella of being just the person who goes above and beyond. And her management team identified
right there.
That's
what I tell everybody. Just take a job, go beyond. How do you say it?
Just above and beyond.
Go above and beyond. It's amazing what happens to you when you go above and beyond.
Yeah, and so you can do that without being the quote-unquote proverbial kiss ass. See, there's a difference between people sucking up and kissing ass than working your tail off,
right?
And doing more than everybody else. To me, that's not being in someone's rear end. That's you are setting yourself apart. Yeah. You are forging your own path. And I think a lot of people get confused with that in the corporate world. They think that, because I'm working harder than everybody else, or that I'm doing more than everybody else, that I'm sucking up. No, I'm not sucking up.
Yeah, or you're trying to make them
I'm trying to get paid. I'm trying to make money, because in the end, what does it come down to? Why do you have Candelaria Designs? Why do I work at Phillips Law Group? Why does my wife at Banner Estrella?
Yep.
We're trying to get ahead in life.
Yep.
We have homes to pay for. We got bills to pay.
And we're thankful
we
for
want to
what
live we want to take vacations. And what's wrong with living like that? What's wrong with wanting good things in your life?
That.
Nothing. to me, it's always the people that want to underachieve and that never quite work as hard.
And what's in it for me?
That want to degrade the one that's trying to shine. But
totally.
Getting back to Jen, I'm just so proud of her from that transition because she just works so hard for that, and of course it's bled into our son, which he has autism.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean he's disabled. If anything, he's able.
Yeah, well, I watch what he does. It's a pretty amazing.
He's a pretty amazing kid. I'm so blessed to be his dad. He's my hero, Mark.
Well, he got the genes of both of you, so it's like a mega gene.
Yeah, and sometimes that can be a little bit surly. He's a little bit sharp, and he can be a little bit abrasive, but, he's my son. He's our son 100%.
How old is he now?
He's 18, going to be 19 in May.
Okay, I've got an 18-year-old, too, so 18's tough, no matter who it is or how they are.
There's a meme on Facebook that says, this is when you're arguing with a younger version of yourself, but you want to strangle it or something.
Oh, wow, that's funny. That's so
It's when you're arguing with a younger, more surly version of yourself or something. It's a parent arguing with their child. But but he just finished his freshman year at Arizona Christian. He's on the football team. He's on a partial scholarship, and he had
that's awesome.
4 A's or 3 A's and 3 B's or 4 A's and 2 B's.
That's awesome.
So he's striving. He wants to be an engineer. He's also liking architecture, so maybe one day I could have a mentor.
Bring him to the office, seriously.
I'd love to see that. He's doing this Minecraft thing right now where he's designing houses, and they're part of this group.
Okay, bring him to the office. I will take him to a couple of our projects, walk him around.
Oh, he'd probably love it.
Yeah, you come along too. Check him out.
I'd love to.
That would be totally. Okay, let's talk a little football.
Let's talk football
coming up.
All right, yes.
All right, we've got the college championship game.
That's a heck of a game, isn't it?
Good, isn't it?
Oh, you got two teams who really just, to me, exemplify what college football is all about. You got Joe Burrow over at LSU, just won the Heisman Trophy, who's just an outstanding quarterback. Trevor Lawrence, of course, with Clemson. But I'll tell you what, I'm really rooting for LSU in this game, and I'm going to tell you why. Ed Orgeron. This is a guy, Mark, who had adversity a few years back. Now, everyone sees him right now as the LSU head coach. Probably going to go down as one of the best coaches.
Listening to him.
Raspy voice he has, yeah. Doesn't he sound like the water boy that goes for the water boy?
I can just sit there and listen to him.
He's a guy that I admire a lot, and I'd love to meet him and shake his hand because I'm going to tell him, you know what, Coach, you're a guy who helped build USC in the glory years with Pete Carroll, and then you left, got fired out of Mississippi State. I believe it was Mississippi State. Got fired after a couple of years, and then he goes back to USC, helps build them back up, and gets them, where they're bringing in the recruits. And, sadly they had Lane Kiffin and Sarkisian there. So he's getting passed over at USC. And then they pass him over again. They hire Clay Helton, who's hated by the Trojan fan base, and they pass him over. After he took the team 9-4, I believe, and won the bowl game, you thought he got the job. You think USC isn't pissed off right now? You think in the annals of...
Well, I think he fits LSU perfect.
Yeah, but somewhere in the deep recesses of Troy, at Heritage Hall, that I believe that place is called, I'm sure they're regretting that decision because here he is, this man who's overcome so much. And when you saw him win the SEC, the way he cried, and they brought up USC to him in an interview, and he cried, it still bothers him. But for him to go and take this group of kids and have them believing and now playing for the national title, I really hope he wins it. I think that a man that's been through so much like him, who's been through adversity, has been fired, been run out of town twice, but now he's in Baton Rouge and he has the Tigers winning the way they are.
And
I really hope the Tigers take that game.
The offensive coach or one of the other coaches, his daughter-in-law.
Was the coordinator, his daughter-in-law. What was reporter for ESPN? I'll talk about the blow before a game. For them to go out and play the way they did, they just ran over Oklahoma. There's nothing more dangerous, Mark, than a team with its back against the wall. And I think that LSU has had that mentality all season. They do not play like they're favored by 3 touchdowns. They do not play like they're ranked number 1 in the country. They don't play like they're the national would-be champion.
They just seem to play like
last week we interviewed Kes McCorvey, and we asked him about the Florida State teams of the early 90s. He says, we practiced like we weren't that good. That was profound. We practiced and we worked like we weren't that good.
I love that ASU Florida State game. Was that fun or what? It was a great game. The offense couldn't really do much, but
it was a defensive struggle, and I think that we showed a lot with Tony White calling the defense. I think that we're going to be okay.
The defense was good.
Oh, man, we were fire. They made some plays, too. They're on scholarship, too, but hats off to the defense.
We could have folded in that game in the first quarter. Easily. And that fumble, and then to get that interception right back, that was crazy.
And then the kickoff return. So there was a lot of elements in that game that could have caused us to not proceed or to give up.
Pack it in.
And even though our offense didn't score a lot of points. They didn't lose the game either.
That's right.
So we got a bright future with Jaden. I think that the program is going in the right direction. Herm Edwards.
How involved are you in at ASU?
Well, as an alumnus, and now I'm a donor. I'm a Sun Devil 100 Club member. You have to go a certain number of years at a certain amount to get into the 100 Club. I really can't interact a lot with recruits, and I don't Facebook. I don't do anything like that because I don't know what the rules are. I know that boosters, technically, I would be considered a booster now. Yeah. I'm involved from the standpoint of that I donate. I'm on campus, when I'm for games. I interact a lot with Coach Herm, with the players. When I have a chance, my nephew by marriage is playing on the team. He's a walk-on lineman, Eddie Medina, who's doing really good. Hopefully he'll have a chance to maybe get the 2 deep this year. Yeah. But, as an alumnus, we don't have a lot of interaction on campus with recruits, things like that. Especially me that I'm a donor, I really don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to ever get my program in trouble. Yeah. But I'm a diehard Sun Devil. I'm involved. As much as they'll have me, I'll be involved.
We know that about you. I love that about you. That's what I love about you.
Well, it's because I'm a Sun Devil that I have these great things in my life, Mark. I got my degree from ASU. I graduated, Latin American history. I was meaning to go to law school. Didn't really work out that way. I went to the NFL. That's why I majored in Latin American history because I envisioned myself this big shot corporate lawyer, working in South America or in Mexico and bringing corporations together. And, because NAFTA was big, in the 90s. And I was envisioning myself being a part of something like that. It didn't work out that way, but that's okay. I have a great career now. I work at Phillips Law Group. Even though I don't have a law degree, I may still go back to law school. There's been lawyers that are older that went to law school. I'm more mature. I believe I can conquer law school. I've pretty much conquered everything else.
Totally.
It would be a hell of an accomplishment. We'll see what happens in that note, but I love what I do for a living. I run an intake team. I have just, 8 people on my team that are just fantastic people, human beings. I coach them. I nurture them. I lead by service. I serve my group. I do everything I can for them so that they perform for me. Yeah. And it works. It's a big thing when you lead through service. You ensure yourself that you're going to be protected and that your people are going to be watching your back because they know that you have theirs. I would say, I fall on the sword, I'll fall on the grenade, whatever I got to do.
Yeah, see, I think your mindset and your...
It's the lineman mindset.
Well, yeah. But see, that's just it. I love that mindset because it's not the star of the show, but without you... Now, I use this metaphor all the time. Without a good lineman, the stars of the show can't perform.
No.
They're not any good. Yeah. Barry Sanders would not have 225 yards.
The offensive lineman is the only position in all of football where your purpose is to protect or to lead somebody. Yeah. Lead the running game. Yep. Open holes, block linebacker. Your job is to protect. You're the only position that protects in the whole field. Right. So that says something.
So then
takes a special person to play
towards business. And I think there's a whole thing that you've got sitting there that you could work from for a lot of businesses. You could teach a lot of businesses the lineman mentality of running. Oh,
absolutely. Whether it's a law firm or Candelaria Designs, you always have to protect the company. You have to protect your employees. You have to protect the firm's reputation. You have to protect, for us, state bar licenses. Everything we say, everything we do can have a profound impact on the people around us, especially when you're on the intake level. We're the ones talking to clients. We're the ones dealing with clients. Everything we say and do,
you were telling me
could potentially have some severe consequences. Yeah. So we always keep that in mind when we're dealing with people. Make sure that we're professional, that we're doing things the way we're supposed to, that we're taking our direction from the attorneys. And when we do those things, we're successful. And thankfully, we've had a great year, and hopefully, we're going to have another one. So
I think you have a career there that you don't even know about. Teaching other businesses what you know.
Well, good. We'll see what the future holds.
We might have to talk about this.
Well, we may have to. Okay, so I'm always up for something like that.
Let's get to NFL real quick.
Okay.
We got a couple minutes left. Let's just talk about where's the NFL go? Who's going to run away with this? Is it going to be Kansas City, Baltimore?
We have seen a metamorphosis in quarterback play that I think is just outstanding.
Mahomes is
seeing Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson set it off, with his play in Seattle. But we have just these young stud athletes who are just showing that, there used to be a stigma against a black quarterback a long time. It was such a racist, disgusting thing that
I'm so glad that's over.
Warren Moon started to smash it. Randall Cunningham started to smash it. But these guys have really just taken it to another level. Yeah. They're intelligent. They're phenomenal athletes.
Yep.
They can do things that not a lot of people can. And when you have that, and, Houston has their guy, too, who's his name escapes me at the time. But, right now, Lamar Jackson, of course, is just taking the league by storm. And Baltimore, Russell Wilson with Seattle, I think those are going to be your Super Bowl teams. I think that Russell Wilson's experience.
You still got this Tom Brady dude kind of floating around out there.
Yeah, but I don't think they have the dogs on offense.
I don't think so
they got Tom Brady. He just doesn't have the weapons anymore.
Yeah. And I think Baltimore's
it's Jesse Amendola, but they don't have a running game. Their vertical game is really just not there. The defense is not really able to stop anyone anymore. They've really just at this point aged out. I believe that the roster just got tired.
Yeah.
But don't ever count them out because they do know how to win. They do know how to play. But I believe this is Baltimore's year. I
think they're the sleeper in this thing.
I think Lamar Jackson is just on a mission. He's a young man from Louisville to now he's just a different guy.
Yeah.
And when you get that young guy in that situation, Russell Wilson did it. Sadly, it wasn't against the Patriots, but he did against your Broncos.
Yeah.
But it was mostly defense. But that's, of course, Baltimore's staple is that not only do they have this Lamar Jackson kid on a quarterback, but they got to play darn good defense. Yeah. And that's what Baltimore's known for is their defense. So I think it's Baltimore-Seattle in the Super Bowl. I do believe that the Seahawks
will get in there.
The Seahawks have caught fire. They figured something out. You got Jadeveon Clowney over there.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson, of course, you can't ever count him out. Now you got the Niners in there that could potentially unseat them, but I think it's Seattle. Pete Carroll, you can't count this dude out, man. He just knows how to coach teams into the Super Bowl.
That's crazy.
No, his decision making in the Super Bowl could be
they
left to
screwed up
desire.
that play the other day where they ran.
That's why he has his little gaps here and there where he can goof
that?
up, but that team just knows how to get there, and they know how to perform. But
I think that's season.
John Harbaugh.
Starting tomorrow, it's a different season.
Oh, it's a whole.
Forget
three speeds in the NFL.
Games.
There's preseason speed, there's regular season speed, and then there's playoff speed.
Totally.
And I think it's going to be a great playoffs, but I do believe in the end it's going to be Seattle-Baltimore, and I may be wrong, but I think those are your Super Bowl teams with Baltimore taking the whole thing.
Okay, I think it's going to be Baltimore 49ers.
You think Niners, huh?
Yep.
Well, I think Garoppolo, I mean, he has his moments too, but I don't know if they're going to be able to beat Seattle. Just
they're crafty. You're right. Carroll's crafty.
49ers don't have the experience that Seattle does in the playoffs. Now, granted, a lot of the Legion of Boom is gone, and those teams are, but they still got Russell Wilson. You can't count that dude out. He knows how to get it done in the playoffs.
Rise at the right time.
Exactly, and they just, they just have that ability.
All right, so I'm running out of time. There's like 20 more questions here that we didn't even get to. So
we could do another show then.
You and I are definitely doing another podcast. So how do we get in touch with you? How do we find you? You gave us. We'll put the link to your podcast in our episode notes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So it's Sun Devils Worldwide is my Facebook show page. Of course, my personal page, is always there.
Well, I love your Instagram, and I love your Facebook.
I don't really do much Instagram.
Well,
I try to. It's Facebook that I'm really monogamous with social media. Mark, you got Twitter, you got Facebook, you got
I can't do Twitter. I
this
can't
Snapchat thing now. I mean, I could. I'm getting older.
Snapchat.
I'm monogamous.
So
I can only do one.
TikTok. Are you doing the dance?
I don't even know what the hell that is. So that just shows you.
You and I have to do a TikTok. That's what we'll have to do. You and I.
A TikTok. Okay.
We'd be a funny pair next to each other, I think. So we'll track you down. I definitely go to his Facebook page because especially next fall after Sun Devil games, I love watching to see what you say.
Oh gosh, I sometimes,
especially if they
sometimes regret it, but it is what it is.
I love it, man.
Well, nothing pisses me off more than negativity, and even in victory, people can be negative. Our fan base needs to just snap out of it and start supporting Herm and this program. It's going in the right direction. Yep. We got great things happening. We got great recruiting class coming in. We got some really dynamite wide receivers that Jaden's going to be able to throw to. We didn't have that in the bowl game, as you saw.
Yeah.
So we got that new running back Ngata who just committed recently. So we got some dogs coming in. So it's going to be a mixture of youth and the kids that have been there. I'll look for Merlin Robertson and Darian Butler to really step it up.
Nice.
This coming year, and I think we got great things going for the Sun Devils. Hopefully, great things going for Candelaria Design. I know our firm is going through great things. The Valley itself is going to go through some great things. It's a great time to be alive right now, ain't it?
Oh, I love it.
It's going to be a great year. 2020 is going to be rock, man.
Let's do it,
I have no
friend.
doubt.
All right,
Absolutely.
brother. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Paella.
Oh, I definitely enjoyed it. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you so much, Juan. That was so much fun. I could have sat there and podcasted or just shot the shit with you all night. I mean, we had a great time. We wandered back to the kitchen and had a little paella. He took a bowl back to his wife, Jen. And since then, we've been texting. We've got some projects that we're going to work on. It doesn't have nothing to do with architecture. It's going to do with some webinars, a little speaking. I think his energy and my energy combined with maybe some other people, we're going to put together a fun little group, I think, and maybe some functions and events over at our office with the new kitchen, and should be a lot of fun. Speaking of which, I want to thank everybody who has contributed to our dinner that we're going to have at the Frank Lloyd Wright Taliesin West this coming Thursday. We sold it out, and I don't know how much we raised for the foundation, but I know we did pretty darn well. And it's going to be a fantastic evening. Cocktails at sunset, tour of Taliesin West, and then we've got a fantastic dinner that's going to be served in the Frank Lloyd Wright Cabaret Room. So thanks for the support, everybody. It's fantastic. And we will see you next week. We've got some more great podcasts. Actually, you know what? We've got one coming up Wednesday. We're going to do a pod swap. Okay, a pod swap. Basically, I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to interview Renee D. from Iconic Life magazine, the digital magazine, and she interviewed me. And we're going to release both podcasts on the same day. So it should be a lot of fun. So stay tuned to that this coming Wednesday. All right? Have a great week, everybody. And remember to always inspire living. Okay, a happy new year to our good friends at Stockett Tile and Granite Company, where your project is our priority. I'll tell you what, we are getting close to getting our kitchen put together, and so many people are helping us on that project. And I'll tell you, one that I always enjoy working with and traveling with and cooking with is my good friend Dave Stockett and his lovely wife Becky. And their crew are helping us out tremendously there in the kitchen, so we want to thank them. They do fantastic work, and anytime you got Dave and Adam and his son Adam and their crew on one of our projects, that's one area I don't have to worry about. I know it's going to be first class all the way. So thanks again, guys. Let's make it a great year. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed our podcast. We encourage you to write a review, screenshot it, and share it with your friends. Please instant message it to me and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. We thank you for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights to inspiring living next week.